I tried to invite Shamgar to speak this morning, but he wasn't available. Not really. Shamgar, fascinating biblical character. He is mentioned in 2 verses, just 2. And normally I do not go off of 1 verse, but in this case, I will make that great exception. This is kind of like what an ox goad would be. Now, if you were plowing oxen, plowing oxen. If oxen were plowing for you, once in a while the oxen, of course, would go, I'm done. And of course, you need the oxen to go, that the fields might be plowed, that there might be a harvest. And so you would have an ox goad, which was simply a stick made to poke oxen. Now, this one is about 6 feet long. Real ox goads were about 10 feet long. And some of them had a metal tip, some didn't. Now, at the time, the Philistines were the group that was dominating the Israelites. And of course, you didn't want your enemy or the people that you were oppressing to have, sticks with sharp points on them. So some people would say, it had a sharp point. I'm thinking maybe it didn't. And you can kind of take your pocket knife and whittle it down so you can have a nice little pointy thing. And so when the oxen get stubborn, you give them a little poke and they probably go, and they start moving again. So that's what an ox goad does. So this is actually a bow. It's like one of those karate things. And if I do this too many times, I'm going to drop it on my toe. So the verse to take a look at, this is in the book of Judges, chapter 3. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. I would love to see that battle. I mean, not that I'm, into blood and guts and things like that, but I mean, how did he do that? I mean, was he whipping the thing around in circles? I don't know, but this is what he did. He was a judge. He saved Israel. Now, we know that after Ehud killed Eglon, remember Ehud, he was the left-handed guy, and somehow his left-handedness enabled him to kill Eglon, and it's just really gross because it said he stabbed him and he removed his hand, and Eglon was so rotund that the fat closed in around the sword. You couldn't see it anymore. And he ran off, and his servants thought he was in the restroom, taking a long time. And so finally they couldn't wait anymore, and they walked in, and there was Eglon, dead as can be. And once you kill the person who's in charge, then you have some chaos going on. Well, after this, there was peace in the land for 80 years. But as we learn of the Israelites, it didn't take too long of a time. This is about 2 generations for the people to say, hey, that guy who delivered us out of Egypt and, has done all these things, the crossing of the Red Sea, the crossing of the Jordan River, sustaining us for all those years in the desert. Yeah, Baal and Asherah, they're a little more fun. And so after a while, they would follow, and then God would allow some neighboring groups to dominate Israel, and that Israel would cry out to the Lord and say, hey, Lord, we figured out that we're in this mess that we're in because we have turned away from you, so we want to turn back to you. God would send them a judge who would come and defeat the current oppressor, and then he would be a ruler of Israel. Whoops. Push the wrong button again. Now, we also see Shamgar in Judges chapter 5. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were abandoned, travelers took to winding paths. So there was chaos. We can assume the Philistines were dominating these groups and maybe, bad people. So you wouldn't walk on the highway unless you would get mugged or killed or something else terrible happened to you. So it was not a good time, and then Shamgar arises and sets the situation back to the right again. So we look at Shamgar. Very interesting. Shamgar is not a Hebrew name. And so people who study the text, they wonder, was this guy even a Hebrew? Was he even Jewish, so to speak? We don't know. He might have been a Gentile. He certainly has a Gentile name, but maybe his parents weren't that really committed to the Lord, and so maybe they just gave him a name that was a Gentile name, or if you want to say a pagan name. So here's a guy, his pedigree probably isn't very good. He's not from the right side of these societal tracks. Now, he's called the son of Anath. Anath was a war of love. It was a goddess of love and war. Sorry, I got my words scrambled there. Was a war and love goddess. Oh no, it reads really well. Okay, now you know it so well because I've repeated it. So he was named the son of a goddess of love and of war. Now, goddesses of love, well, what the world calls love, we don't. So you get the drift there. Not a very good thing. And the goddess of war, violence, all that stuff. This is not the kind of a name that I would think a servant of the Most High God would have. So his heritage is probably not that great. He has a great lack of pedigree. Now, sometimes if you're going to do ministry, people like to ask you, well, where did you go to Bible school? Well, myself, I put in 4 years at Moody Bible, about another year and a half at Houghton College. I've started a couple of master's degrees programs, could not complete them due to other life circumstances. Now I think, do I want to go for a master's degree? And I say to myself, yeah, Richard's got it. Yeah, no. I don't know if it would benefit me, in regard to my walk with Christ. I have no idea. I'm just not too anxious. But, when people say, oh, you're a preacher, well, what's your degree in? And I have a bachelor's degree in Bible. From Houghton College, which is a Wesleyan Methodist school, but that doesn't really matter. What degree do you have? Now, we look at the disciples. What degrees did the disciples have? Fishing degrees, okay? And they had tax collecting degree. All those degrees which really teach you about God and what he's like. Well, the fishing would teach you patience and waiting, I guess. Samuel. What degree did Samuel have when he was ministering before the Lord at 5 years of age? Now, we figure he was pretty smart, but he's not that smart. He didn't go to Hebrew school. He just worked under Eli to know the Lord. Paul would look at all his credentials that would make him a great Jewish teacher, and he said, yeah, no. All I really want to do is I just want to know Jesus. All this stuff that I knew before, no, I consider it as a loss, business term, a loss. I consider it as dung, rubbish. So maybe that doesn't matter. Now, Jesus was from Nazareth, and of course, what good can come from Nazareth? So Jesus was looked down upon because he was from the wrong side of the tracks. He was from a dingy little, well, we assume it was dingy, a little Roman outpost. So Jesus did not have any kind of pedigree whatsoever. Now, then there is this guy, D.L. Moody. He had so much impact for Christ. So let me read you a little bit about D.L. Moody. Dwight L. Moody had a rudimentary formal education, limited to approximately the 5th grade. He never attended college or seminary, was never ordained as a clergyman. He struggled with grammar, spelling, and pronunciation throughout his life, often spelling phonetically. His wife, Emma Revell, helped him study to improve his presentation, but he remained a self-admittedly unpolished speaker who relied upon a plain talk approach. He was not a scholar. He showed little interest in complex theology, literary classics, or biblical languages. He regarded the Bible as self-interpreting and focused on the practical application rather than academic study. Despite his lack of formal schooling, he became a prolific institution builder. He founded Northfield Seminary, Mount Hermon School, the Bible Work Institute, which later became Moody Bible Institute. His emphasis was on training lay people for evangelism through practical Bible-centered instruction. Now, he also was a shoe salesman. Okay? Now, what does salesmen learn how to do? They learn how to sell. They learn how to communicate with people, to develop relationships, and all. So what God did with Moody, it was so awesome. He took Moody, and before Moody even knew Christ, he was shaping him to become a servant of the Most High God, to travel the world preaching, leading hundreds of thousands to Christ, including eventually even Billy Graham. I mean, amazing stuff what God can do. His style. Direct and unpolished delivery, Moody's speech was characterized by, again, grammatical errors, a lack of rhetorical flourish, which he openly acknowledged. Critics often mocked his syntax, but Moody famously retorted, "I know I make mistakes, but I'm doing the best I can with what I've got," which is what I seek to do sometimes when I get my tongue tangled. Terrible thing to happen. His message was simple, so therefore people could understand it easily. When we want to talk to somebody about Christ, please don't go to Romans chapter 11. Go to John chapter 3. Much better place to start, keeping things far more simplistic. So Moody, what pedigree did he have? None. But God worked in his background, worked in his life to make him into a great evangelist. I think I've gone over this before, but one evangelistic task that he would use is he'd be walking and he'd walk up to somebody, intentionally step on their foot. "Hey, I'm sorry, I stepped on. You know Jesus?" And I don't know if that ever worked or got him punched in the nose or something, but that's what he did. Now, we might think in terms of, I have a lack of talent or ability. Okay, what does Shamgar probably do? He probably plows fields. What ability does he have to deliver Israel? He walks behind oxen all day and probably has to watch his step at times. So what talent or ability do we have? Who am I that I should serve God? And who said that to God, do you recall? Moses. Okay, God says, "I'm going to send you, and I'm going to use you to get my people out of Egypt." And who am I that I should do this? What's God's response? It's not who you are, it's who I am. And so, can we say, "Oh Lord, I don't have the talent or the ability or the gifts to tell people about Jesus"? So, John, I'm kind of towing in is that the word I want? Anyway, towing in on the Sunday school series, okay, on telling people about Christ. Do you have to be great? Do you have to be wonderful? No. Do you have to have great talent and ability? No. What do you have to have? A heart that seeks to be obedient to Christ. So Exodus chapter 3, Moses. Who am I? Doesn't matter. 1 Samuel chapter 1. Who's the little boy Samuel? Okay, and even more. Who's Hannah? A childless woman gives birth to Samuel, who becomes the great leader of the nation. Jeremiah, "Lord, how can I serve you? I'm just a youth." The 12, what talents did they have? Again, probably exaggerating because they're fishermen. Gideon says to the angel, "How can I deliver the people? I am from the smallest tribe. I'm from the weakest clan, and I'm the weakest in my clan. So I'm the weakest of the weakest of the weak." And God says, just get busy. Okay, God's got this. And we know about the victories. Johnny Erickson Tada. I think it's Tada, not Tada. This woman, I think she was 16 or 17 years old. She did a terrible mistake. She dove off of a raft into shallow water, and she broke her neck. And she is paralyzed from the shoulders down. Now, she has a little bit of use of her bicep muscles. I think a little bit triceps. She can drive. She can maneuver well enough to drive now. But she is 77 years old. 77. So she has been doing this for 60 years of her life from a wheelchair. She writes. She sings beautifully. The doctors told her, "Oh, you can never sing because you cannot draw enough breath to sing." She sings. Okay. I don't think she's put out any albums, but I know for a while back in the past, she was putting out some CDs. What ability does she have to serve the Lord? She's got this heart on fire for Jesus Christ. And she's got this whole ministry called Johnny and Friends, which is an outreach for Christ to people with handicaps and people who take care of those with handicaps. What can she do? She's in a wheelchair. She can hardly use her arms. Does it matter? What talent or ability do we need to have? Just a heart that seeks to serve God. Now, Shamgar probably had a very bad background. Again, he's named Shamgar, which is a pagan name. Shamgar, the son of Anath. So he's got a pagan name. It says you're the son of a goddess of love and war. See, all of us have got a bad background. And no one can come in the presence of God and saying, "Hey, God, I'm pretty good, aren't I?" No, that's not the case at all. All of us have got this bad background. Ephesians chapter 2. When you were dead in your transgressions and sins in which you used to live, when you followed the ways of this world and of Satan, you've got a bad background. Every one of us does. Nobody can say, hey, God, I've got a pretty good background to serve you. It doesn't work that way. John chapter 3. For God so loved the world that whoever would believe in Christ. God so loved the world, that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish. That's the road that we have been on, but we should receive everlasting life through Christ. Isaiah chapter 6. What does Isaiah say about himself? I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. And my eyes have seen, he's just totally messed up, because he knows that he is unworthy to serve God. He knows that he does not have what it takes. But what does God do? God puts his words in his mouth. Isaiah chapter 53. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have each turned to our own way, and God has laid upon Jesus the iniquity of us all. Upon him, the iniquity of us all. So nobody can stand before God and say, God, I'm awesome. Nobody can stand before God and say, oh, I'm one of the elites. Not at all. This guy. Take a look at that last name. I actually sent him a message. It's basically, it's like Hardlicka, something like that. I don't know the accents, but this guy was a Hell's Angel. And he did a lot of nasty things in his life. You can see some of the tattoos he's got. He's got the neck tattoo going, the one here. He's got, but he came to know Christ. His life has been radically changed, and now in Virginia Beach, Virginia, he runs a tattoo parlor, and when he does this, when he's doing a tattoo on somebody, they're hearing about the gospel of Jesus. Okay, so a radical change in his life. So he's gone from Hell's Angel to somebody who seeks by his business to tell other people about Christ. Would you think a Hell's Angel would be greatly qualified by his background to serve Christ? Well, what does Paul say about himself? Okay. Yeah, worst of sinners. Now, also understand that Paul said that we should all be saying that about ourselves. So when Paul says here's a trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance, Christ came into the world to save sinful sinners, of whom I am the chief. We should all be saying that because we all are cut from the same cloth. 1 Timothy, and hopefully this is really familiar. I just pretty much went over it. Let me make sure to read it so we're abundantly clear that our background doesn't matter. Here's a trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance. We should all say this. Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am the worst. But for that very reason I was shown mercy, so that in me, the worst of sinners, Christ Jesus might display his unlimited patience as an example for those who would believe on him and receive eternal life. Now to the King eternal, immortal, invisible, the only God, be honor and glory forever and ever. Amen. So we all have got that same tainted background. If someone's a traitor, does it matter if they're a little bit of a traitor or a great traitor? No, they're all traitors. All the same stuff. Now, after Ehud came Shamgar, and he struck down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. What do you see that needs to be done? As you look at the world around you, as you look at your neighborhood, as you look at your families, what do you see that needs to be done that would be honoring to Christ? Do that thing. And whether anybody notices it or not, you do this. Because you've got neighbors. And these neighbors need to get to know you, that they might see Christ in you, the hope of glory. And so maybe, a ministry of occasionally dropping off cookies to someone. Maybe that would be great. Don't drop them off to me. Okay, Ann makes great cookies all the time. They're just amazing. But what do you see that needs to be done? So we look to our neighbors. And we tried to meet their needs for Christ. What societal needs do you see that need to be done? There are times I get involved with, in the abortion debate with people. And people will point out, and there's this dumb thing that they point out. All these pro-life people, they would say. All they care about is babies before they're born. But did you know that there are like 480,000 children in foster care right now, and no one's adopting them? About at least 70% of those children, the foster care system is trying to restore them to their family, so they're not eligible to be adopted. Now, so let's say we have maybe, we'll say 100,000 left, okay, that are maybe are up for adoption. The number is a constant. Because the number is a constant, that means you have the same number of kids being adopted out and more kids are being brought into the system. So because that number of kids who are waiting to be adopted remains the same, that tells you that all those other kids are being adopted. So that statistic they point out is false. It's phony. We have this societal need, and it's very difficult to take in foster kids. But we do it nonetheless. I love our crisis pregnancy centers. This is a ministry seeking to meet a societal need. So we seek to meet these. Meeting needs can lead to opportunities. Okay? Jesus is that temporal and eternal solution to the mess that sin has made and is currently creating with a greater zeal all the time. He is the solution to the now. He's also the solution for the eternity. What is our purpose? We are a chosen people, a holy nation, okay, the whole verse, that we might declare the praises of him who called us out of the darkness and into his wonderful light. Matthew 28, what is our purpose? While we're going here, there, and everywhere, we're supposed to be making disciples of everybody that we encounter. That's the objective. So here's a picture of my shed. I did not clean it up for that purpose, and however, I have had people look at my shed and they say, wow, yours is neat and tidy. It's actually a little bit chaotic, but there's not that much there. Now, the first arrow is pointing on a lawnmower. Did you know that you can use a lawnmower for outreach and to build relationships? You can cut a neighbor's lawn. Maybe that, some people are really fussy about their lawns, so, don't cut theirs, okay? But, say there's somebody in your neighborhood that they have a hard time cutting their grass. Maybe their lawnmower is broken down. Maybe they're old, and maybe they're lazy. Well, cut their grass. I wonder why they cut my grass. And if they ask you, why did you do that? Then our response is, well, because I wanted to honor Christ. And so by serving you, I'm serving Christ. It's because of Jesus that I'm doing this. Now, let's see. Okay, what we're pointing to now, two things. Sorry, the red arrow wasn't that bright on the lower one. But the upper one, that is a snow shovel. Shovel your neighbor's sidewalks. I don't think anybody's ever going to be fussy about how you shovel their snow. And then the other arrow is a snowblower that Bob Banta gave to me, I think a couple winters ago. And what I do with that is, my back doesn't like shoveling snow too much anymore, but the snowblower, I do neighbors' driveways. And I will do driveways for neighbors who are capable of doing it themselves. The whole intent is I want to build bridges for relationship. Now, pointing there, and you really can't see it, is one of my two skill saws. Now, this skill saw has the blade on backwards. So if the blade is on backwards, what am I cutting, Rick? Do you know? Metal or plastic? Yeah, okay. So that way it doesn't go like shredding and flying all over the place. It's set up that way because I help my neighbors out sometimes. Now, I like fixing things. It's just something I love to do. But, the soffit on my neighbor's house was falling out, so I fixed that, used my saw. I have another neighbor, the skirting in front of her place, the park has just not replaced it. And so I finally told the park, give me the parts. I'll take care of it. Why am I doing this? Because I want to help to serve Christ in this way. Now, I've got some other neighbors, some younger guys, and they're capable of helping me. They can crawl places now where I can't, of course, or maybe places I don't want to. And I can say, I have a hard time, going underneath there. Could you go there for me? But that's how we seek to develop relationships. It's not that we memorize great sermons or great speeches. We memorize a gospel tract, which might not be a bad idea, but we build relationships with people that we get to know them, that we get to be able to tell them of Christ. The arrow now is pointing to a ladder, and I use the ladder to, go up and repair things on people's roofs. I've got a neighbor, I can see where nail pops are coming up underneath the shingles, which eventually means water is going to get driven underneath the shingle, which is going to make stains on their ceiling. So that's what that ladder is used for. So all these things, they are tools of ministry. Oh yeah, I got a pressure washer. I can go pressure wash people's stuff. Okay, all these things. Oh, a bicycle. I've got a neighbor, their daughter wanted to borrow a bicycle. So, here, I'll pump up the tires on this, and you can borrow this bicycle that we have that we really don't use. All these things are what is at hand. Now, for Shamgar, what was in his hand? An ox goad. I wouldn't think an ox goad would be a great weapon to go against 600 people with. But obviously, God enabled him. What is at hand for us? I mean, we can look around and maybe some talent we think that's a silly thing. Use it in ministry. Use it for other people. Use it. What is at hand? God has got things for you. Second Peter chapter 1, verse 3. God has given us everything that we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of him who has called us by his own glory and goodness. If you need it to do the work of God, God says you've got it. Okay? Pete and Cindy. Did I put the Pete and Cindy stuff? Okay. You take a look. Pete and Cindy's newsletter is in the bulletin. So let me grab that for you. These are great people. So you read about what Pete and Cindy are doing, and let's see which one. Oh, there it is. Okay. Today there is a treasure hunt. This would have been yesterday. Clues have been hidden, leading from one spot to another until they get to the treasure which is buried. Jesus is the real treasure. So they take this creative idea of a treasure hunt and they adapt it and they use it to teach people about Jesus. Pete and Cindy doing great stuff. I printed it in there for you. Continue to pray for the Muslim couple I mentioned. How do you meet Muslim couples? You go where they are. It's Monday. Cindy is going to be having a piano recital with her students. I guarantee you that those students are hearing something about Jesus during those piano lessons. Taking what is at hand and using it for the gospel of Christ. Hidden treasures, Grandparents' Day. Taking what is at hand and using it for the gospel of Christ. The Silverthorns, I mean, you guys are awesome and brilliant, but this is a desire that God has put into your heart. Okay, and you take stuff and you take little hats and you use them in ways to find ways to tell people about Christ. What is in hand? It's all around. Your background doesn't matter. So if I were to say Steve, child of John and Janet, or Al and Janet, heritage. Okay, it doesn't matter what my background is. It could be Steve, child of Boofus and Doofus. Okay, doesn't matter what my heritage is. My background doesn't matter. God is the qualifier. God is the enabler of people to do ministry. So we cannot say to God, who am I? God, no. Hey, who am I? That's what you have to deal with. The mission field is all around us. The fields are white for harvest. There is no one here who doesn't know people who don't know Jesus yet. Okay. We have been equipped with what is needed. What did Gideon need to fight the battle? A torch in a jar. That's what he needed. That's dumb, but that's what God chose, and it worked wonderfully. Well, I guess I should be careful of saying God's plans are dumb. What does Isaiah say when he is confronted with his sinfulness, and the angel takes the coal from the altar and touches his lips, and I've made you clean? What is his response? God says, who will go for us? And he's like, remember when we were kids in school, and the teacher would say, oh, who would like to answer the question? And all the kids, me. That's how we should be in regard to serving God, because he says, I will be with you. The world that we live in is a mess. And God has called us and has equipped us and is equipping us to reach a lost and dying world that is dying simply because it doesn't know Christ, that denies the God-shaped vacuum that fills people. That's what God has called us to.